Hello, we are live. Cheers to everybody. So this, I'm doing Instagram too, and that's going to be an interesting practice because this camera is falling over, but that's all right. So hi Mary, hi Tina, welcome. All right, I'm gonna start off by pouring my beautiful wine, which I'm really, really excited about. We're having Kibblestad, and look at the color. It's absolutely outstanding. If the sun was shining, we'd be really, really excited because it would be perfect, the pink drink for today. But all right, so we've got Tina and Mary and Marla, welcome, and Melissa, hello. And Jess Weller, hello. Judy Setti, hi, cheers. Cheers, everyone. All right. There's way more to know about rosé than I ever knew. And so Keith and I last minute, behind the scenes, were gathering more and more information. And I think I have more information than I've ever had before. But that's all right, because I have games too. We get to them. All right. So people are just hopping on. Hi, Keith. Hi, Diney. Hi, Liz. And cheers, Melissa. I'm not sure if that's how you spell it, but Melissa Chwers. Lori Bailey, welcome. Hello. All right. I don't know if you guys can see. I wish I could see all of your beautiful rosés because there's so many pretty colors. This one is like a light salmon. Here, I know you can see it, but that's probably a better way to show you. Okay. There does appear to be something floating in it. And it's a little piece of cork. I didn't open it. I'll blame it on Keith today. All right. Yay, cheers to Liz. Hi, Leanne, welcome. Hi, Greer. Happy Friday to everybody, and yay for games. Wow, my comments were a little slow there. Cheers to everyone. Oh, and Marla, cheers. That's another new way of spelling cheers.
Do you want to give people a warning of the thunderstorm
and
the tornado?
Keith and my youngest daughter have both mentioned Keith loves thunderstorms, but we do have some big weather coming through. And so if you lose us, that's why, okay? If there are big thunderstorms in the next short while, okay? That's why. So, and Leanne will probably drop off if I drop off. All right, hi, Chris Westberg. You probably already got the storm that was coming through, and Marla, I bet you did as well. Matt said salmon. That's right. It's a salmon color. Nice. Nice. Hi, Anne. Cheers. Glad that you guys are on tonight. All right. So we're going to go ahead and jump in. And first, I've already said cheers a million times, but we're going to say it again. I'm just happy to see you guys. I'm happy that I'm broadcasting from my Artisan Wine Group site instead of my personal site. And so cheers to all of you. I'm wearing pink in honor of tonight because we are drinking pink wine. Yay, Sally. I'm so glad that you're on. Sally, she couldn't get on last week. A couple of people couldn't get on last week, and so we're going to make up for that a little bit. All right. So for those of you who are new to joining us, and I know there are a few of you, what we do each week is we taste a bunch of wine, and we talk about it. And I try to bring wine tasting and wine education to everyone because I know it can be overwhelming for some people, and there's tons and tons of information. And sometimes I'll say something and I'll think, oh, I hope that was right. And more often than not, it is. And I would consider myself, a knowledgeable wine person. I have an advanced degree from the WSET out of the UK. And there's Keith's iPad. And so, Keith, I did tell them that you would post this link on to both sites to make sure it's coming through. And so I do find that I do know most things, but I did notice I was asked a question a few weeks ago about Mendocino County. And when I was researching it, hi Nancy, welcome. When I was researching it, I realized that Mendocino County is actually north of Sonoma. And I've never been there. So to remember every single California wine region is not my particular strength unless I visited there. So that's just an example, but ask away and hopefully I can answer all of your questions. So what we do is we run through a tasting and we talk a little bit about the varietal, which tonight is rosé. So there's lots of varietals within rosé. So it's more of a style. But I want to circle back around just because last week we did Italian reds, which is a huge, huge, huge category. And it's like saying we're going to study France tonight. right, for an hour. So there was a lot to cover. And so I just want to kind of go back and first give a shout out to those who tried to get on who couldn't. My mistake, there was no indication from Facebook that we were on my personal page. Hi, Christine. And so I want to thank you guys for sticking with me and for messaging me that you couldn't get on. During the broadcast, I can't check. I don't get the messages, but afterwards I did. And as always, you are welcome to join me or to reach out to me and send me messages that I would love to answer. Hi, Melissa Davis. Welcome. And so I will definitely be doing Italian Reds again. But cheers to you, those of you who reached out directly, and I'm sorry. And because of that, I also decided today to stream live on Instagram. So we'll see how that goes. Cheers to everyone.
I don't know how to find the link right now.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
The drinking game tonight. The drinking game tonight is first salud for those of you who are not able to make the Italian wine tasting. Okay, so salud to all of you. Hi, Lisa Gilbert. Okay, and then the other word, because what we found last week is we didn't say, the word was ciao, and we didn't say it quite enough, as my brother Andrew pointed out. And so the word of the night tonight is rosé. Okay, so rosé or salud, and we cheers. All right, so I'm going to do a quick quiz for you this evening. Okay, and Sally is Whispering Angel. I know it very well, Sally. It's a beautiful color. All right, let's do a couple of Italian red questions, and then we're going to jump into the rosé. What's the main varietal grown in Italy? Now, we've never done this before, so go ahead and put some comments if you want, if you know. Main varietal in Italy? Anyone? Bueller?
Tuscan?
No, Sangiovese. Sangiovese, some of you may have gotten it. And that's what Chianti is made of. And then we talked about Barbera and where Barbera is produced, which is Piedmont in northern Italy. And I thought this would work better. Oh, Anne got it, Chianti. So Chianti is actually the region and Sangiovese is the grape. So Sangiovese is grown across Italy. And Chris Westberg, you are correct. Chianti is made of grapes. And Sangiovese is the main grape varietal. All right. It's a little hard with Facebook to answer in a timely way, but we tasted a Barbera from northern Italy, and then we tasted a Super Tuscan, some of us, and that was a blend of French varietals made in Italy, so it's kind of cool. Hi, Melissa. Welcome. And last question for you. Hi, Vanessa Neiston. Nice to see you. What are the most exclusive, most expensive red wines from Italy? Da, na, 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 na. Hi, Brenda. How are you?
Super
Welcome.
Tuscans?
Keith got it. Anybody else? All-inclusive answer. Yes, Chris, your answers do tend to be all-inclusive. Yes. It's Barolo and Barbaresco. Those are the $100 plus up to thousands wine made in Italy. Okay, so why are we talking about Italy tonight? Well, because it goes right into talking about rosés. All right, and so we're going to move on to that. But now that we're caught up, right before we start talking about rosés, I just want to wish Melissa Hennenberger a very happy 50th birthday for tomorrow. Thank you for joining us on your 50th birthday eve. And it's all uphill. I mean, it's all downhill. It's all what 50 is awesome is what I'm trying to say. Everything since 49 was tough, 50's been unbelievably awesome. And so I wish the absolute best for you, Melissa. All right, now we're gonna, well, let's have a cheers for Melissa for her birthday. Cheers. And we also have a drink for saying rosé, those of you who did it. I mean, who caught that. All right. 50 is fabulous. Greer just turned 50, and we can cheers to Greer too. Happy birthday. All right, so summer's coming. It's a beautiful pink juice, and it's a summer favorite rosé. Now, sometimes I talk about how we start off, or how sometimes things get a bad name, get a name that's not really appropriate for how good it's become, and rosé is one of those things. All right, here come in the happy birthdays. All right, so there's lots of different colors of rosé, and it's beautiful. And it can be made sweet, it can be made sparkling, or it can be made very, very dry. All right. So what is rosé? Rosé is wine traditionally pressed from black grapes, which would make a red wine. So it's basically you take black grapes or red grapes and you press them and you get the juice from them, and they pick up from the skins the color. And so Mary's hoping 60 is the new sexy. Welcome, Betsy. Nice to see you. All right. And so rosé it's not only beautiful colors, but also the flavors and the aromas can be outstanding. How do you know it's a good wine? It goes really well with food. Okay. The one that Chris and I have the same one, the one that we're trying tonight is pretty dry. All right. It's called Kivelstadt Cellars Rosé from Venturi Vineyard, which is a beautiful vineyard in Mendocino County. Organic, it's actually biodynamic as well. And it was foot pressed. Yeah, you heard me, pressed by their feet. So we'll talk more about it. But when we do aromas and taste quality, who knows, maybe you'll get stinky feet. We'll see. All right. Beautiful colors, beautiful flavors. What's up, honey?
It's just the broccoli.
Oh, we had broccoli tonight. Keith thinks that's the stinky foot smell. So rosé is French, English, and Portuguese. So when you're drinking a wine pressed from black grapes, it has, you call it rosé if you're in the U.S. And hi, Jen, welcome. Thanks for joining us. And in Spain, they call it rosado. And in Italy, they call it rosato with a T. So in Spain, it's with a D, rosado. In Italy, it's rosato with a T. All right. Which one? Melissa, let me know what I'm spelling later. Foot pressed? Maybe foot pressed. Chris is on the health. Yes, it is. It's because it's organic and it's biodynamic and has some foot in it. All right. So Marla asked, what's the difference between rosé, rosado, and rosado? So the interesting thing is that it's really all the same thing. It's all a pink wine. That's what it is. But there are different ways to make it, and you can use lots of different grape varietals to make it. So just what Marla said, it's just the pronunciation of what they call it. But in France, they're going to use specific grapes. In Italy, they're going to use Italian grapes. And in Spain, they're going to use Spanish grapes. So the big varietal in Spain, for example, that's an easy one because they don't have as many varietals that are well known. In Spain, Tempranillo is the big varietal. That's the grape, the type of grape. And so Tempranillo is what makes Rioja. Tempranillo will be mostly what they use to make their rosés. Okay, so rosé tends to be between red and white in terms of mouthfeel and bigness. What does that mean, mouthfeel and bigness? It means if it's big, it has a robust, fuller body compared to white. So you'd have white on this end, which would be light and crisp and fresh. And then as you oak it, it gets a little bigger. But then you would get to rosé in the middle, where red would be even bigger, an even bigger mouthfeel. Okay. I don't know, Lisa Gilbert, if they all use their feet. It's certainly something we can email and ask the owner.
What do you want them to use?
Well, and when I was Keith wants to know what you want them to use for the pressure. So what they're doing is they're harvesting the grapes at night. Or well, not always at night, but a lot of times they harvest grapes at night because it's cooler and it stops the grapes ripening. And so when they do it at night or whenever they do it, they bring it to a sorting table and they sort it, and they take out the stems and then they press the grapes. And so a lot of places like in France, they had older presses, which were big platforms, wood platforms that just come down on top of the grapes and gently, gently press the grapes so that you don't get too much skin, you don't get too much seed inside. So they have to be careful with what they extract. Using feet is kind of the old Laverne and Shirley method, right? Because that was an awesome meme. But Lucy and Ethel, that's what it was, not Laverne and Shirley.
They were the beer.
Yeah, that's right. Laverne and Shirley did something similar, but they did it with beer. It was Lucy and Ethel, and they had a big fight in the wine vat. So what happened is, it was in the early 2000s, they actually made it illegal for people to foot stomp wine. But when I researched it, I didn't research, is it legal? But when I researched it, there are places, there's even a winery near here, it's either New Hampshire or Mass, where you can do grape stomping, which I think it would be such a fun field trip.
Probably not during coronavirus.
I would love it. Probably not during coronavirus is correct. But what happens is when you stomp it with the alcohol and the acid and the tannins, it kills any bacteria. So it actually is safe.
Wait, there's alcohol and tannins in grapes that are being stomped?
Well, so, okay, so Keith points out, he loves to prove me wrong. Yes, you are correct. The alcohol hasn't put the sugar and all the things that will come out of the juice, and thank you for clarifying, and ultimately when the alcohol develops within it and the acid develops within it, will kill any sorts of bacteria and microbiomes. Yeah, thank you for the clarification. So Chris's wine has the most amazing legs from the top of the glass to the level of the wine. Okay, so he's jumped ahead. He is paying attention to what he's drinking. You're a good student, Chris Westberg. The rest of us are just drinking our wine right now while Alison and Keith talk. But I agree. I think it would be a sensory win. I think it would be really fun. And Mary says one of our friends, Phoebe, she thinks has done that. And Chris has named his foot-stomped wine Chateau de Bunyan 2020. All right. And so there are places you can go for that experience. And this wine, this twice-removed wine that we are drinking tonight was foot-stomped. Okay. All right. So anyway, back to rosé is known for fresh, vibrant flavors and acidity. And there are grape varieties of every kind that are used to make rosé. So we're all going to be tasting something in general different. Does the color tell you how it's going to taste? Not as much as other wines. And so some of you are going to have orange. And it's funny, when they describe orange wines, they describe them like orange of an onion peel, all the way to dark red. Yeah, not this one.
Century.
All the way to dark red. And this is a Rosado made in California, which I'll explain later. But see how dark it is? That doesn't mean it's going to be sweet. It just means that it stayed on that the varietal it used had darker tannins or darker phenols, which put the color into the wine. And also, they may have left it on the skins a little bit longer. Okay, so it can be made still, semi-sparkling, and sparkling, anywhere from highly dry, like in Provence, which is what Sally, I think yours is from Provence, all the way to sweet to white Zinfandel. And somebody might ask, Liz says she once toured the Welch's Jelly Factory at Pacific Northwest, and they used press, not feet. And I can see why.
Alcohol in Welch's
there's no alcohol because it hasn't fermented. Right. So, we're laughing at Lisa's comment because she's getting manicured toes, well-manicured toes from like housewives of Mendocino County. Awesome. So some people will call it blush wine. So what does that mean? Blush wine and rosé are the same thing. It's just passé. People don't say blush wine anymore. That was kind of from the 70s. But it's okay if you say it. And actually the funny thing is if you go to restaurants, they often will list rosé as blush. So
that's a restaurant?
Yeah. Rosé can be sweet or savory. What does that mean, savory wine? Savory wine is the opposite of fruit forward. It's earthy. It's vegetal. It's dry. That would be a savory wine. All right. And so some of the most common grape varieties that are used in European wines are Grenache, Sangiovese, Syrah, Mourvèdre, Carignan, Cinsault, and Pinot Noir. But then in Italy, they have a whole huge grouping of beautiful rosés that don't all make it out of oftentimes they don't make it out of the country. And those are made from Aglianico, Montepulciano, Negro Amaro, Nerello Mascalisi, and Sangiovese. And do you guys notice how my Italian wine accent is getting better? I did not practice. I know. Do you believe it? but anyway, so yeah, so Sally has her Côte de Provence. So we're gonna the distinction in rosé is where it's from, what grape it was used for it, and then also how it was made. So there are different ways of making it. We're gonna talk about that, but first I think we need to drink. So, and Melissa asks, so overall we can classify rosé in general, but there again are so many different varietals that can make it that they're all going to have different taste and flavor combinations. So most of the things that when I was looking at all the different varietals and possibilities, If it's from an area that's along the coast, like Provence, or if it's made in the Provençal style, like our wine, the Twice Removed from California, it's, you know, shellfish, shrimp. I think we were talking about shrimp scampi. But if it's more substantial, like the Rosado, that's going to be a good barbecue. So you just need to know where your rosé is from to know what to pair it with. Overall, it's always safe to go with appetizers, but rosé is being made in a heavier style, so it can be drank all through the year, and it can be can go with a lot of different foods. I would never put it with steak. I would never put it with a dark meat or a heavy cream sauce. It will just taste like alcohol. That coats your palate, so it won't be great. Okay, so Marla's is 50% Grenache, 30% Cinsault, and 20% Syrah. And yes, I totally agree with you, Sally. I have an estate that I want to plan a trip to Tuscany, and it's beautiful, and we can go truffle hunting, and we can choose our own fruits and vegetables, and then the chef cooks them up for us, and we do all this wine tasting. And I was just planning it when COVID hit. So as soon as COVID is done, that's going to be on the table. It'll be so much fun. We can have yoga by the pool, and it's amazing. Okay. So, oh, that's interesting, Greer. So Greer's having it with shrimp cakes, and Lisa's right. We always think of it warmer weather, and that is typically when we break it out, okay? And Jess, are you really having it with waffles and bacon? Because that's fascinating to me. Interesting. Greer's having it with shrimp cakes, which means there's breading in it. So it's heavier than just seafood, but lighter than something with a heavy cream sauce, okay? And Marla's is savory, great. And what is a heavier style rosé? Liz is imagining the sweeter rosé. So a heavier style rosé is going to be made in a different way, where it's just basically the juice being pulled off the red wine that's being made without being on the skins too long. And it has just a bigger body and a bigger mouthfeel and higher alcohol as well. I want to go on a truffle hunt too, Chris. You get to bring a pig. The pig hunts up the truffles, or a dog. All right. Oh, I'm sorry, Sally, that your trip was canceled, but you're getting a puppy. That's exciting. All right. So jumping back on to our C sniff. Okay, everybody's going to have different colors, and I so wish, again, that we could see all your colors of your wines, because rosés are so beautiful. You'll see them in a liquor store when we can eventually go back to one, and they'll be lined up for spring, all these different shades of pink. All right, and so this is ours tonight. The Kivelstadt Rosé, and I call that a salmon color. It's a salmony pink. What colors would you call what you're drinking? So take a look at the color and see. Okay, Tracy's having the Kivelstadt, which is what I have tonight, part of the tasting pack, and she says it pairs really well with Gruyere cheese. I bet it does, because Gruyere is not as creamy, so it doesn't coat your palate quite as much. It's more of kind of a mid-range, but just a fantastic cheese. Not hard, not soft. It's kind of in the middle. And so we're looking at our colors. Can you go ahead and comment with your colors? I'd love to see the different colors that you have. Someone might have copper. This is a little coppery. You could actually have a purple, like this one is really a purple. This is 14% Sangiovese, 14% alcohol, and it is made out of Sangiovese. Hi, Mike Alcock. Nice to see you. What does twice removed mean? And that's a great question. This is the This is the Kivelstadt that we are drinking tonight from the tasting pack. And the reason it's called twice removed is because this winery was founded by a guy whose parents owned a vineyard in Sonoma, and they would sell a lot of their wines. And he was interested in the business, so he went to school. Then he became a consultant, but not in the wine industry. And then he quit everything and traveled the world as a winemaker. And he came back to Sonoma, and he opened Kivelstadt. And so his name is Jordan Kivelstadt, and he called it twice removed because of the way it was handed down through his family, the vineyards, because he uses his parents' vineyards. So that's why. Now, he's an interesting guy. He also has started a free flow wine movement where he is trying to make wine, high level, high quality wine that is going to be on tap. So wine is already on tap in a lot of restaurants. Like when we stayed at a vineyard in Eastern Washington, really beautiful, overlooking the Columbia River. And we saw them carrying out, steel kegs. And we said, is that beer? And they said, no, wine for our restaurant. So it's a big thing out west, and it likely will be coming this way. But because of the laws right now, I think it's a little bit trickier in this area. I did ask a liquor store owner in New Hampshire what he saw as the new trend. And he said he thought wine on tap, because they're coming out, they're pouring really well. So this guy who makes this is kind of the pioneer of that. And you can get, there's one restaurant that you can get the Kibblestot on tap. All right, so Sally, I saw a peach. I saw a chicken piccata over pasta pairing. Chris Westberg, craft singles might deceivably do well. Sally's is light salmon, absolutely. With that, the one that you're drinking, yes, absolutely. Diney's is peach, yep. So that, Diney, that's kind of airing a little bit towards that salmon or orange. So it means if hers is peach, a little bit lighter, that means that it was on the skins less time. Okay. So Lisa says, Ina Garten, shrimp salad, very good. Okay. Marla's, she's got salmon, light pink and orange, peachy with golden hues through it. You guys are unbelievable. Chris, you have rosé from Pinot Noir. And I wonder what color, so that's from Chile. So amazing to see the wines from around the world too. So the Pinot Noir, Chris, tell us that should be very light, what color you get. All right. And so let's see, Greer says, does wine on tap affect the taste? Greer, the answer to that is the same I give for wine in a can. It can't not, okay? It can't not affect the taste because the kegs are made of steel. But if they're fermented in steel, it won't be as big of a deal. What they do is when they figure out what cans they're going to use, they, meaning the winemakers, they will have sommeliers taste to see if they can taste the difference. So one of my friends came out with a device several years ago, and their wine sat in a plastic bag. I could taste it. And so they had sommeliers taste it, and sommeliers said, I think it was 9 times out of 10, they could not taste the plastic, the effect of the plastic. So they're making cans now with different liners that shouldn't kind of, I guess the word is slough off or affect the wine, but it absolutely does. I mean, that's why we drink out of glass, right? Because glass, and if those of you who are drinking out of plastic, no judgment, but the wine can pick up, the wine can pick up some taste of plastic. I can taste plastic when I drink wine. If you can't, that's fine. If you keep tasting with us, in a month or two, you might be able to. All right, so good question. All right, lots of questions while I was talking. Let's see. Light salmon, Melissa, excellent. It must be your birthday. Tracy, restaurant in Nashville called Napa East that had wine on tap, but they tapped the bottles in a special case box. So there's what is called a cru de vin. I'm not pronouncing it right. I know I'm not pronouncing it right. But it's those big refrigerators you see in the back. Oh, Tracy, I think I know what you mean. We went there. So all along the back, they had displays of bottles with things that stuck into the wine, and then they could pour it. So what that's doing is that's putting nitrous into those bottles. It's storing it cool, and then they pour it out. Tuscan Kitchen has that in Burlington as well, and I was so excited to try some of their top Italian wines. But the issue that people are running into is that it's pouring cold. So a beautiful red Italian wine, you want it warm. You want to get all those tastes. And so it's a cru de, I have to think of the name. But yes, and that's different. That's in you're still being poured out of the wine bottle, not out of the keg. All right. Hi, Kelly, welcome. And Chris got light salmon as well for the Pinot Noir. And so that's interesting. Pinot Noir has a lighter skin grape, so I'd expect it to be a little bit lighter. All right, great. Okay, so Chris was pointing out the legs on this Kibblestot. Okay, what do the legs tell us? The legs tell us how big the mouthfeel is going to be. This, you can't see quite as well. It went down pretty fast, so it's probably not super viscous. So it's probably going to be a little bit light on the palate, higher acid. Okay, all right. And so the other thing about color for rosé, what does it tell us? Only how well, if you don't know the varietal, you're not going to know how dark, but overall, all it tells us is how long it might have been on the, how long it might have sat on the skins of the grape. So lighter is on the skins less. But depending on the varietal can be darker or lighter. Okay. Oh, Sally has a Coravin. Excellent. Yes. Okay. So Sally, thank you for mentioning that. I don't like to always mention, but I do sell Coravins on my site, and they're fantastic. I can demonstrate it another time. But what you basically do is you sit it on top. It's very much like the device that Tracy was talking about, and it has a needle that goes down through the cork. It releases gas into the bottle, and then you can pour wine from that, and it fully preserves the wine. So it can still age for years, even if you siphon some off. But it's putting gas in the bottle to preserve it and keep it from oxygenating. And so that's what those wine fridges do at restaurants. And they also just came out with a screw top. So you take off a screw cap and you put on the Coravin screw cap, and then you can do the same thing with the needle down through and preserve it. So pretty cool technology. Love the Coravin. Okay, so Greer says, does the temperature of the rosé depend on where the rosé is from? Yes and no. So overall, rosé should be served chilled, 46 to 50 degrees-ish, okay? I can feel mine is warming up, all right? Again, white and rosé, if you're serving a wine chilled, you want to have a stem. If you don't have a stem, your hand is on the wine, and it's warming it up, okay? So, oh, Leslie, welcome. I'm so glad you had a great baby shower, I'm assuming, and I'm glad you were able to join us. So we're into the Kibelstadt, or the rosé, and we're looking at serving it cold. So I've said this many times, but I'm going to say it again for those of you who are kind of new. If you were to ask a wine expert, can I put ice cubes into my wine? They would be appalled. Not appalled. Well, they might be a little. Like if I said it, they would be appalled. And that's because the water releases into the wine. So you lose the taste. It becomes watery wine, not how wine was intended. So if you're drinking an inexpensive wine, you don't care how it tastes. You're just port sipping it. You're drinking it by the pool. By all means, put an ice cube in. Thank you. Put an ice cube in. However, if you are not and you want to chill your wine, I just bought, I think it was from TJ Maxx or Marshall's, little, super cute, little just plastic. And again, it can pick up some of the taste from the plastic, but it's not going to leach all the water into your wine, and that keeps it cold. It's not like storing in plastic. So that's what I'll give you should you come to my home to swim in my pool and drink wine with me if it's a warm day.
And everybody's invited.
And everyone's invited, he says. All right, so Chris, wine in your house lasts 1 to 3 hours top. I hear that all the time. You don't need a Coravin then. Plus, wine can last in the fridge for several days. So, so yes, absolutely. And then you can cook with it after that. So it depends what you want. I like to try lots of different wines, and Keith doesn't really drink wine during the week. And so if I want a glass of wine, I'll use my Coravin. I love it, and I get to taste lots of different wines. And even when I'm training consultants for my business, anybody who wants to be a wine consultant, you would get a Coravin so that you can try lots of different wines. Hi, Danielle. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us. I haven't seen you in so long. Marla says, same. Lisa says, I've been saying. Okay, those of you who are new, we play a drinking game. The drinking game of the night was either Salud, which I hadn't said, or Rosé. If I say either of those words, you have to drink. So, goodness, we are far behind in our Rosé. All right. So let's see. Yeah. And so it's a mix of who drinks a lot of wine and who doesn't, but it's a nice way to be able to, like if you purchase a tasting pack and you have 6 different kinds of wine, you can taste those, I don't know, through the week, you know. So anyway, all right, so we looked at the wine. Now let's swirl the wine. All right, so we're gonna swirl it and smell it. Oh, what do you smell? Tell me what you smell. I can tell you what I smell, but I wanna hear from you guys. What did you say, honey? Keith says feet. Anybody who says alcohol, move away from your glass and come back, because if you are overwhelmed by all the scents and aromas, then you'll just smell alcohol, okay? Some of us don't have a great sense of smell, and that's okay. Taste and smell go together, but you can still get the mouth qualities and some taste. Okay, Lori Bailey got fruity and floral. Lori, tell us where yours is from. Marla got pineapple. Okay, so that's tropical. And then minerals, definitely there should be some acid and minerality in your rosé. And then Marla got some soil, which we would call earth. All right. Lisa got peach. Absolutely. There's light peach, a white peach. And Leanne got peach pineapple. Yes. Yep. Keith got grapefruit. And he and I are drinking the Kivelstadt. And there's white flowers. Sally got floral. And Sally's is going to be a lot like the one we're drinking because Sally is drinking one from Provence. And we are drinking one that is made in California in Mendocino County. But it's in the provincial style. So it's the same grapes as in Provence. Okay. Chris got California Coast Central Coast Rosé is more coppery. That's interesting. Grapefruit color. All right. And Chris, tell us, does it say what varietals that is, or is that another Pinot Noir one? Mary gets apple. Okay. And Tina gets grapefruit. Lori's is from California. Okay. And I know I asked where it was from, Lori. And Jess gets peach. Diney gets melon and citrus. Yes, absolutely. And Chris is getting serious mineral smells from this one. Okay, so what does that mean? And Melissa's getting peach as well. All right, all of these smells and tastes are in rosé. All right, and so what I want you to do is swirl again, actually even cover. You don't even need to cover because it's so highly aromatic. But then smell again. So it's bursts of fruit, at least from the provincial style. You're going to get bursts of fruit at first. But then what do you smell? If you can set those smells aside, what else are you smelling? Apples, floral, yes, absolutely. Hi, Laura Dempsey, welcome. Okay, and then Chris got that minerality. And so those of you who aren't getting those different qualities, it may not be in the one that you are drinking, but likely it is. And so if you focus on it and really think about it, because that's what wine tasting is versus wine drinking, it's focusing and paying attention, you might be able to pick up some other scents. That floral piece that Liz mentioned and a few of the others drinking Kivelstadt, it's like a rose. It might be a violet. So see what kind of flowers it is. And this is opening up. You're using a lot of your brain when you taste wine. A lot of your senses, because you're really, really trying to remember what are those smells? Oh, Chris's is a blend. Okay. All right. The one from Central Coast is a blend. So that one will have different qualities as well. Okay. So Marla said after covering hers, she smells water. So likely, Mar, what that is just you're oversaturated your olfactory senses. So just give it a minute so you can come back. Okay. All right. And Melissa's drinking Domaine Tempierre from Bandol. And I will talk about Bandol and the qualities from the wines there. Very cool. Lots of minerality. And that's, of course, as always, in French wines, you're going to find more minerality because that minerality is going to go with food in a different way and add a different quality to food. Okay. So Lisa Gilbert has the Kivelstadt and she's getting greens, almost like a fresh cut grass. And I think that might be a piece of like the grapefruit citrus. Okay, that is my guess because I don't get greens, but I try to liken it to what that might be like. Okay, and Chris is getting floral and apple. Okay. Oh, and Leanne, you got, okay, so celery. You and Lisa are doing the same thing. So greens and celery. And again, I think that could be a part of the minerality. All right, let's taste it. Light fruit. Judy got light fruit. Yes. And Judy, as we go on, if you can try and identify what specific fruit, and the more you do it, the more you put specifics on it. Okay. Now, Chris has a provincial wine that's floral. So, Chris, you mentioned 3 of them, I think. So they each would have different qualities. Okay, so now we're going to taste it. If you remember, I always teach when you taste the first sip. You take the first sip and you drink it, and then you take a second sip. And that's because your taste buds at first are kind of can be overwhelmed by the wine. But then as you have the second sip, you then have the opportunity to be able to really pay attention to the taste. Okay, and again, Diney said get celery too, and Melissa says heaven in a glass. That's awesome. I'm glad that you're loving it. All right, so let's go ahead and taste. All right, what do you get? I get big grapefruit first. What else? Okay, now as you're throwing these things out that you're tasting, I'm gonna say yes, 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 because that's what you're tasting. But I may push you a little to think about what exactly is that? What is that sweet taste that you're getting? What is that celery? We don't often say celery, I know what it is. Now, I've never had rhubarb, but in all the reviews, they talked about rhubarb in the Kibblestad and in rosé in general. Okay, so that's interesting. So Marla gets apple, pineapple, citrus. Yeah, and apple is not usually as prominent in rosé and not as prominent as you would get like strawberry, bright cherry, melon, grapefruit, and then that rhubarb. All right, we're gonna have to taste rhubarb next week. And in honor of my niece, Jenna, we're gonna have to taste rhubarb. All right, Tina gets apple, but more of a green apple. Yep, that tart fruit taste. Yeah, and Leanne, I don't know if you've ever had rhubarb, but we're gonna call it that and pretend I'm right. Okay, all right. All right, and so also the wine should be acidic if it's a good rosé. If it's too sweet, it won't be acidic, okay? And so some of you may have sweeter wines, and that might be what you enjoy. We talked about white Zinfandel last week, and definitely that's made in the rosé style, okay? So as you're picking out your taste qualities of your rosé, I want to talk about how rosé is made, all right? I love the comments on the rhubarb. All right. Strawberry in pie. Oh, that's interesting. Interesting. And Diney, dry and crisp, great call out. You definitely, most of the rosés, the finer rosés nowadays, you want them to go with food, you want them to be dry and crisp, a fresh, crisp acidity. All right. Now, here's how rosé is made. I talked about it a little bit before. And hi, Dana. I just gave a call out to Jenna. Nice to see you. And Mary says she used to grow rhubarb when she was a kid. Mary, we have to have a talk about that. I bought it once. I didn't know what to do with it. Next week we're tasting it. Rhubarb. All right. So Chris is getting strawberry on her Chilean Pinot Noir. Chris, great call out. So Pinot Noir, one of the top tastes in Pinot Noir is strawberry graham crackers. And a lot of people don't get that on a full bodied Pinot Noir. So that's a great call out on the rosé. Yep. Okay, Scott, yep. So Jess and Scott are getting a little bit different, pretty similar, but different. The grapefruit, the rhubarb, the acid, and then Scott's also getting a violet and a rhubarb. Okay. So Mary notes that the rhubarb is a cross between strawberry and celery. There you go. Mic drop. We're good. We're done. So yes, so there's lots of great different tastes within these rosés, okay? So anybody who stopped and said, wow, she's doing rosé tonight. That's odd. You may not have known what rosé has become because it used to be, as I said before, basic and sweet. And now it can be outstanding and beautiful, okay? So I'm gonna jump into how it's made. So we talked about the foot stomping, direct press. So that's when you take the grapes, you put them up, they pick them, they press them, meaning they're juicing the grapes, so they're removing them from the skins, but then they'll add the skins in and have them sit for a short period of time on the skins. It could be anywhere from 2 hours to 48 hours, okay? And so some of them, like this one, you can guess it's so dark, I would guess that it sat on the skins for longer, but I also know it's made of Sangiovese, which is a thicker skinned grape, and so but that's still really dark for a rosé, right? Okay, and so the longer the juice touches the skins, the darker the wine will be. But if it doesn't have to be left on the skins if it's made with red wine. So if it's made with red wine and they just want a little bit of blush, a little tiny bit of pink, they'll just press and go, and you'll still get a light pink, beautiful color. Okay, then they ferment it on its own in concrete or steel, whatever they choose, and it's typically meant to be drank young. However, there are some rosés that they're making more acidic that can age a few years, and they're actually starting to oak, or I shouldn't say starting, because rosé's been around for a very long time, but some places might oak rosé. It's not common, but if a sommelier is looking for a good food wine, they may look for one that's oaked, and we'll talk about that after. Okay, let's look at some of the, don't eat the leaves, just the stalks. Oh, isn't that funny, Sally? You guys grew rhubarb too. That's so funny. So if you don't like rosé, and it doesn't sound like many of you are there, but some of you might be sitting back saying, you know, I don't really like this. And that's okay because it is an acidic wine and it is light depending on the style that you're drinking. But another style of making rosé is called Saignee, Saignee. And that's a rosé that's made differently, okay? And some people argue that this is a finer rosé. It can be a little bit more expensive, but here's why. It used to be that when winemakers were making, and it still happens, winemakers will go and make a red wine. And as they're making, let's say they're making a Cabernet Sauvignon, and they want to get more extraction from the skins of the grapes and maybe the seeds and the tannins, they want to pull more out. They will pull juice off the bottom, and that juice is what color? It's pink. And so what happened is they're pulling the juice off, and as it fermented, it was turning into a beautiful rosé. It has a little bit more structure. They're more bold. They're bolder than a typical light rosé made in the direct press method. So it's called Saignee, and it means to bleed in France because you're bleeding off a portion of the red wine. All right, so unique style of wine, often bolder and darker in color than any others. If anybody has one that is bolder and darker, take a look on the back, and it'll tell you if it's made in the Saignee way, okay? Where can you find it? Typically only 10% of wine that a winemaker makes is made in the Saignee fashion. So you typically will get it at a winery, though some countries do export. Italy definitely exports to us, and so does France. And in Napa, you'll expect to see Cabernet Sauvignon Saignee. Loire Valley, they do Cabernet Franc in the Saignee rosé. In Chinon, if anybody's been there, that accent wasn't great. And typically anywhere that makes Syrah and GSM blends from South Australia to the Southern Rhone will also make some in the Saignee fashion. One of the most intense rosé wines, along with the Tempranillo rosé that you'll ever try. Okay? All right, let's see. Anybody have a Saignee? Let's see. Chris's Chilean is her favorite of the Central Coast. Okay. All right, interesting. So Chris, so is the Chilean wine, so you mentioned Chilean wine is the Pinot Noir grape is okay. I think what you're saying is the Pinot Noir grape is your favorite from the Central Coast as well, and the Provence Rosé. Yeah, so Lisa asks, if you oak rosé, how would you expect to age them? They actually, it's interesting, so they'll come out as older. So when you go to a store now, you're gonna see 2019s and maybe a couple 2018 rosés. And that's because, again, serve young, they're made to serve young, okay? But, sorry about that, computer just flipped. Okay, so they're made to, hi Tammy Wilson, it's nice to see you. I don't know why, but my email keeps opening on that screen. Okay, so the question was, why, shoot. Sorry, a little bit of technical difficulties. Okay, I'm gonna ignore it. My email keeps coming up, but I can't see comments because the email keeps opening. All right. Saignee, S-A-I-G-N-E-E. And, oh, the oak rosé. So when it's oaked, they would expect it to age differently. So when you're in a liquor store and you get the 2019s and you have the 2018s, 2018s are usually a holdover from the year before. And then 2017s and 16s will likely be the oaked ones, right? Because they keep them in-house and they're gonna be a little bit more expensive. And cheers, because we've been saying rosé a lot. Tammy Wilson, cheers to you. We're playing a little bit of a drinking game. All right, and so so when you go to, so another interesting fact about rosé, okay, I remember going to the New Hampshire liquor store, it was probably 2-3 years ago, and I was talking to the person who worked there, and I asked them, I said, you know, I really like this rosé, but I'm thinking about getting more, and it was on 95 actually, it was on Interstate 95, and he said to me, you better buy it now, because the rosés come in the spring and they get completely bought up. And apparently a lot of Canadians come down to the US, well, not right now because of COVID-19 and the border closing, but they will come down. So maybe we'll have a glut of rosé, I don't know, but they will come down and buy, apparently Canadians love rosé, and maybe they can't get it in the same fashion that we can, especially in New Hampshire where it's tax-free. And so that's why you'll see, not just because of Canadians, and I love Canadians, many of them are on tonight, so you'll see a lot of rosé, big sale right before summer, and then they disappear. So if you have a rosé, except for ones that are big like the Chateau d'Eclan that Sally has, that they have big supply. You probably have seen the Mira something. There are some that will be there a lot of the season, but if it's a special one, it will go really, really quickly. Okay, so just a tip on buying rosé. So the final way that rosé is made is by blending. So you're not allowed to take white wine and red wine and blend them in most of the world. And any high quality products, PDO or PDI, are designations on high quality of food coming out of Europe. They're not allowed to blend except in Champagne. In Champagne, they take the Pinot Noir grape and they take the other white grapes that they're using, the Chardonnay, the Pinot, the Meunier, and they blend those together and ferment. And they co-ferment. They ferment them together. Okay, but you're not really allowed to. You're not really supposed to do that. It's not considered fine, except for Champagne. It's not considered a way to make fine rosé blending. Okay, all right. So likely they think that rosé was probably the first kind of wine that they ever made, but they didn't macerate it, meaning they didn't leave it to sit on the skins for very long. They just took black grapes, bled them, and allowed the juice to ferment. And that was probably the original wine because that was the easiest thing, okay? In terms of color, Lisa Gilbert sent me an article about orange wine. So what is orange wine? There's pink wine, National Pink Wine Day every year, and there's National Orange Wine Day every year. Orange wine is rosé, but it's not rosé. It's the same process, but it's white wines. And they don't fully ferment. They don't, a lot of them don't allow yeast, and it's just basically the white juice, and it starts to turn a coppery yellow, a dark yellow, and you can get, it oxidizes. And again, another drink young, you get nutty flavors, almond, and so they're interesting, but you don't see them quite as often, and they're not at the level that rosé is in terms of fine wine. All right. So Marla has asked me several times, Rosado versus rosé, and I know we talked about this at the beginning, Rosado versus Rosato versus rosé. So Rosato is becoming bigger in the US. And Marla had mentioned that she's seen it more often. And of course, I have my Rosato from one of my favorite vineyards, which is Minor in Napa. He farmed his blend of Sangiovese in Mendocino, which it sounds like a lot of rosés are coming out of in the US, okay? And so, as we talked about, Rosato is made from all sorts of Italian grapes, but it can be made from Montepulciano, Sangiovese, Barbera, tons of different Italian grapes, and they tend to be bigger bodied, bigger, fuller. Some people tell you they're the best rosé, but really the famous rosé is the Provençal. The rosé is from Provence, and also the Languedoc Roussillon, so southern France. Okay. All right. So food pairings. I know we love our food pairings. Typically, for a Rosado, it's heavier. So you would go with heavier foods. And so, actually, I'm gonna go back to that. Sorry about that. I'm gonna tell you what makes a quality rosé. All right, older vines makes quality rosé, and Mendocino County in California tends to have old vines, as does some of the other areas in France and in Italy. It makes more concentrated and intense fruit. Oak can help provide texture and structure. And also there are, so from Chateau d'Eclan, there are oak-aged rosés, believe it or not. There's one called Garous, and it's $100 a bottle. It's made from Grenache, Vermentino, and Syrah, and it's harvested from vines over 80 years old. Okay, so it's kind of interesting. There is a range, but overall, most rosés, I would say, are 20 to 30 typically. Okay. All right, let's see. Never heard of Rosado. What pairs with Walmart pizza? Chris, Sangiovese. Definitely Sangiovese. Or Chianti, which is made with Sangiovese. So let's see. Suggestions for Mexican. So that's interesting. I would tend to go towards a Riesling for Mexican because of the spice and because it's so varied. The Riesling can add spice to it. But actually, Melissa, since your 50th birthday is coming and I love champagne, I would have champagne. You got to have a special bottle. For Melissa and Sally are going to drop off a special bottle. You have to have champagne tomorrow. And champagne or sparkling wine will go with anything. So that's what I would do for Mexican. That's a great question. All right. So you all have different varietals. And I think that's what we're going to look at. All right. The different varietals of your wines. Okay. Yet again, my fantastic graphics. Probably on Instagram, you can't see it. I'll move it over. Exploring Rosé. So these are the top rosés and their flavors. I'll post this graphic on my site later. Wine Folly makes the greatest maps, but they basically have the flavor qualities of each and then the food blending, the food pairing.
Instagram's reversed.
Oh,
so you can't even read it.
Okay. So it'll be on my Facebook page. All right. So, we're running out of time. All right. All right, so Grenache, so the Grenache Rosé, which is what we have. We have more of a, in terms of my tasting pack, we have, it's usually brilliant ruby red, strawberry orange hibiscus, acidic, and it's great with, they recommend Greek heroes or with dill tzatziki. So I'm just gonna skim down because I know what you guys are drinking, and I'm gonna just share because we're short on time. There is an amazing Tavel, it's called Tavel Rosé from the Côte d'Aron. And some of you may have had it. It was Ernest Hemingway's drink of choice. And it's an unusually dry rosé. It has more body and structure than most pink wines and considered to have all the character of good red wine, but less color. And it's made primarily with Grenache and Cinsault, but there are other varieties allowed. So Tavel, T-A-V-E-L. So that was one that was definitely recommended. The Provence Rosé, you can find it in Provence, southern France. It's usually Grenache, Cinsault, Syrah, and Mourvèdre. And that's, of course, the style that we are drinking from Mendocino County, is the Provence style. It's fresh, it's crisp, it's dry, it's a great food wine. It's really good with a juicy burger. And it has strawberry, fresh cut watermelon it can have, rose petal, and then a little bit of a salty minerality on the palate. So that's a pretty cool one. And then Mourvèdre too, you see that a lot. We have the Pinot Noir. I know that Chris has that one. That's typically delicately fruity. So bright acidity, soft, subtle aromas. You can get crabapple, watermelon, raspberries, strawberries, and wet stone. And you can pair that with a fresh goat cheese salad or a crab salad. And one last call that I want to make, because people ask me this all the time when we talk about the Finger Lakes or when we talk about local wines, they say, what about Long Island wines? So in my research, I found that Long Island is actually known for rosé. So their provincial style rosés are usually made from early opening Bordeaux varietals. So like Cab, or Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, Petit Verdot, and Malbec. And they're early ripening, so they do okay in the colder climate. They pick them, through the season, and then they create a beautiful rosé with that. All right. So Lisa's really enjoying the Kivelstat, and I think I'll likely put it up on my site if you ever want to buy it on its own. And and so Lisa and Leanne are saying they're surprised. They're surprised at the rosé because of the color. They expected it to be super sweet. And so Leslie had said this to me, I think it was last week, that she's tried all these different wines in doing this. And I'm so glad that you guys are all joining me to try all these different wines, because there's so many different wines for every occasion. Like Melissa had asked, what do I drink for my birthday tomorrow with Mexican? Well, you could get a Riesling, you could get a rosé, and you could get a Gewürztraminer, and you could get champagne and a sparkling wine, and all may go with it. And so it's fun to play with wine. Very fun to play with wine. Yay, Long Island, Long Island.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm so glad you guys enjoyed it. And thank you so much. And great idea for the theme, Marla. And as usual, as always, thank you all so much for joining us. And I know that you have lots of things you can do with your time, but I appreciate that you spend it with us for this hour each week. Cheers to all of you. Have a great week. And we'll see you next week. And as always, feel free to reach out to me with any questions. Take care.